It's time to jam. All right, time to get started. So first thing you want to do, there are definitely people at the grocery store who put their poopy little hands all over everything. So just to make sure that these strawberries are clean, I'm going to soak them in a little bit of cold water first. I'm going to go in with about a tablespoon of baking soda. Now what this does is that it cleans off any germs and pesticides that may be lying on your strawberries. And plus, if you want to have extra strawberries on the side and keep them in the fridge, it keeps it fresher. We're going to let these soak for about 10 to 15 minutes, give them a nice little rinse, and then we'll get started with our jam. All right, beautiful people, it's been about 15 minutes so far. I'm going to take these strawberries and give them a nice rinse. All right, y'all, this next step is really easy. You can scoop it out, you can cut it, whatever your preference is. Put that to the side. And I'm just going to fine chop these strawberries into smaller, more manageable pieces. And this just helps to cook that jam a little bit quicker. Oh, don't think I'm going to keep you here while I'm cutting all these strawberries up. Let's speed it up to the final part, which is about... Told you I wouldn't make you sit through that whole entire process. All right, now it's time to macerate these strawberries. And if you want to know what macerate means, it simply just means putting some sugar on top of the strawberries just to release some of those natural juices. So I'm going to go in with a whole cup of sugar here. Then we're going to go in with the zest of 1 lemon. You can use your hands for this step if you like. I'm not really good at keeping the seeds from dropping down personally. So I have my handy dandy juicer. I'm going to squeeze some of that juice in there. I'm just going to take this here and just get that mixed up. Just make sure all that sugar gets on those strawberries. This is going to sit at room temperature for about an hour. By that time, all those juices should come from those strawberries, and then we can get to cooking our jam. All right, my beautiful people, you see all those juices have come. All right, my beautiful people, you see that all those juices have... Damn. All right, my beautiful people, you see that all those juices have released from those strawberries, and you know what that means. It's time to jam. All right, we're going to turn our burner to medium-low. And this is one of those recipes that's going to take a little bit of time. I'd say about 45 minutes or so, just so we can get the full extent of those strawberries. But while we wait for those strawberries to finish cooking and make that jam, I'm going to treat you guys to some buttermilk biscuits. So let's get these strawberries in the pan first, and then we'll get to making our delicious biscuits. So the goal here is to make sure that all that liquid and juice kind of disintegrates over time. So get all of that sugar, all that lemon, all that juice into your pan, because it's going to help it out in the long run. We are going to come back to this, continuously stir until we get that desired texture that we want. Let it cool, and then our jam will be good to go. So let's let this sit for a little bit, and let's go make our biscuits. We're going to get started with making our biscuits. So first thing I like to do is I like to get started with my flour. We're using all-purpose flour, of course. And I'm going to go with 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Sometimes when you get all-purpose flour, the bag already says pre-sifted. Personally, I don't trust that. So I'll just take a simple mesh strainer. Whoop, here we go. Get the flour in there. And I just do my own sifting. It just gives me peace of mind. Now we'll go for our second cup. Then about our half. Now after we put our flour in, we're going to put the rest of our dry ingredients, starting with some salt. And I'm using a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going in with a couple of tablespoons of baking powder. And this is just going to help those biscuits rise when they cook in the oven. Or when they bake in the oven, rather. I already measured this in the bag, so no need for a measuring cup, but going with 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. That's going to help give some sweetness to those biscuits. Those dry ingredients are going to get a nice mix just to make sure that everything is well incorporated, no bits are saltier than the other, and all those biscuits get a nice rise. For this part, you want to put a whole stick of butter. Now the key to getting those nice flaky layers is having a stick of butter that's frozen. I usually freeze this for about an hour. This just ensures that when you scrape your butter, it doesn't stick to the grater or anything like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and use a simple cheese grater to just really get in there. Had to switch the angle up a little bit. All right, y'all can see here, I've got the butter grated. And real quick, before I add my milk, I'm gonna take my hands and let that butter and flour get to know each other. The consistency is almost gonna feel sand-like, and that's perfectly fine because that's gonna help with those flaky layers in the baking process. All right, I'll make sure that I have my hands nice and floured, simply because once I start to mix the dough, I don't wanna have it stick, you know what I mean? And just to be on the safe side, I'm gonna add a little bit more. I usually say do about a cup. You can use buttermilk if you like. I'm going with the plain old milk for this recipe. What I like to do with my bare hands is just simply scrape, almost like you're kneading a dough, but not so much, if that makes sense. Pancakes was actually the first recipe that I've made from a box, but biscuits was actually the very first thing that I made from scratch. And there's two people I actually have to thank for that. The first person, of course, was my grandmother, because she always used to make fresh biscuits for us on Sundays. It was always one of my favorite foods. And the second was my first grade teacher, Mrs. Fuller. I remember one day we had class and everybody was assigned a task to cook something. And it was pretty cool, you know, being a first grader and learning how to cook. So she showed us actually how to make biscuits using Bisquick mix. It was just nice to know at that young age I had a skill that will set me for life, you know what I mean? I know somebody's gonna look at this and go, oh my God, you have oil in your pan, how unclean. This isn't one of those Brighton stage kitchens that you see on social media. This is an actual kitchen. So sometimes you'll see some pots on the stove. Sometimes you may see a little bit of dishes in the sink. Not often, because I usually clean as I go, but I want to give you a real kitchen experience. I feel like people on social media tend to fake things for the cameras, knowing damn well their kitchens do not look that clean and pristine. So our dough is nice and kneaded. I'm going to put this in the fridge for a couple of minutes just to make sure that that butter doesn't melt. We're going to go check on our strawberries, and then we'll get right to making our biscuits. All right, now this is the critical step right here. It's been about 20 minutes. The jam is coming together quite nicely. I just want to go ahead and reduce those bits of strawberry that are in there. So I'm gonna let this cook for about another 10 minutes or so. And it should be good to go to put in the jar. All right, the jam is coming together quite nicely. This is kind of the ideal color that you want to have. It's a nice crimson red. I've turned that heat off. Our jam is essentially done. And as you can see, let me bring it up a little bit closer for y'all. The low-key kind of want to go for a taste right now, but I'm not gonna brisk burn in my mouth. All right, now for the fun part, we're gonna go ahead and roll those biscuits out. So starting off, let's get that work surface covered with some flour. And that sticky biscuit dough, just place it right on top. And what I like to do is I simply like to just roll that dough over that flour first. And what this does is that it helps that stickiness kind of come together so your dough is more cohesive. And roll it out as evenly as possible. You know, someone once told me that they thought my biscuits looked so good that they were store-bought. I don't know whether to take that as a compliment or to be insulted, but either way, thanks for watching. And what we're gonna do is fold it once like so. Fold it again. Kind of do it like an envelope. Then you're gonna turn it around. And then you're gonna fold it. And then you're gonna roll it out again. This is what's gonna help those layers start to come together. One fold up to the center. Fold it so it overlaps. And since it's starting to stick, I'm gonna add just a little bit more flour. Just some on the top. And then we're gonna roll it out again. The goal is to roll it out as evenly as possible, just to make sure that all of your biscuits are essentially the same size and have the same amount of flakes. Get you an average size cookie cutter. I'm gonna start cutting my biscuits. Now before I cut the biscuits, let me give you guys a little tip. So whenever you're cutting your biscuits, do not, and I repeat, do not push it down and twist. What happens is when you twist the biscuits, it's gonna have an effect on it where it prevents it from rising. So what I like to tell people to do, just simply push it down. Before we put those biscuits in the oven, let's go ahead and give them a quick egg wash. This is just gonna help them brown a little bit better when they're put in the oven. This next step will prevent your glass from breaking whenever you put that jam in there. But you want to temper whatever glass or mason jar that you're going to put that jam in. Just put some hot water in it for about 10 minutes and it should do the job. I'm going to be very careful about putting this in a jar because I don't want it to spill on my counter. So if you can't see it, well then, sorry about that. Almost had it. First off, let's get a couple of videos of that. Look at that. Beautiful, chunky consistency. Way better than... Oh, let me get that in the middle. Sorry about that. That is better than store-bought if you ask me. All right, the moment of truth. Let's try these out. Some things just taste better homemade. Definitely one of those things. That wasn't gonna tell me I had jam in my face. I thought it was cool, man. Y'all done heard me yap enough, so if you're still here watching this, thank you so much for supporting my channel. If you want fun and exciting recipes like these, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Get notified of all the latest recipes that I post. I tend to post frequently during the week because I want to make sure that you have something fresh and hot for dinner every single night. So check my website for all the meals that you see here, plus several others that will help your family out when it comes to dinner time. Follow me for more recipes like these, and until the next time we feast, peace.